never in my life actually felt so close to changing the world. 1 of every 2 marriages end up in divorce. 95% of all romantic encounters end up in a breakup. And as much as the Western world wants to paint that whole idea of independence, like, I don't need anyone, come on. I would die without the feminine in my life.
Gawdat is back.
Ooh, this is a big one, because I think the hardest thing about AI is empathy. And I think they're amazing to mimic it, but I think empathy is one of the biggest conversations we need to have around AI.
Believe it or not, I claim that AI is the most empathetic being on the planet.
There is this conversation where a small percentage of men available for a large variety of women.
Oh, that's so eye-opening. Imagine a car market where 80% of all customers want 20% of all brands only. This is exactly what's happening in the dating world. But interestingly, most dating apps on the planet have 80% men and 20% women.
Well, this brings me on to commitment.
Yeah.
I think a lot of women will say, how can I get this man to commit to me? It's a big conversation, especially being a woman hosting this. I think it's like a voice for so many women who will listen and go, yeah, that's something that I'm struggling with. Seems to be a bit of a barrier in today's relationship.
It is.
Why? Like, why is it?
Can I represent the man's view before we talk about it in general?
Yeah. If you are a regular listener to the show, or Live Well, Be Well, or this is your first episode you're listening to, I really want to ask just a very small, quick favor. If you could please hit the subscribe button or leave a review, this helps the show more than you can imagine. It means the world to help growing this show. And you all know that I have a huge thing to want to hit 100,000 on YouTube this year, and I can't do that without your support. I really aim to bring you the best guests possible out there, and I pride myself in doing that for the show because it's so important. But to keep the guests coming, to get them to be bigger, and to bring more helpful information to your ears and your eyes, I really would love to ask you to subscribe to the show. Thank you. Mo, welcome back.
Yeah.
Welcome
Yes.
back to Live Well, Be
So
Well.
long.
So long.
Yeah, and so long that we hugged. It's
I
like,
know.
was it what, a year ago?
A year ago.
Who's to blame? I think it's you.
I think it's you. You left the country.
No, I come every now and then. You travel all the time.
I do travel all the time.
Yeah.
But I'm excited about our conversation
Thank
today.
you. Yeah.
Well, what did you just say to me
About impact?
about making change?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if everyone listening knows what I'm trying to do with life, but I have this mission, 1 billion happy, and it's working really well, and it's reaching, tens of millions of people. And it started with an attempt to teach people about happiness, in a way that fits the modern world, if you want. But then 2018, we changed our direction to also addressing reasons for unhappiness. And one of the biggest reasons for unhappiness in the world today is love and relationships. And for a fact, it's loneliness is becoming epidemic, and all of the stats are horrendous, really, when you think about it. And the other reason for unhappiness that I kept working on was artificial intelligence and uncertainty around the rise of AI. And yeah, Emma does both. So Emma basically tries to use AI to help humans find love and nurture love in ways that are totally unexpected, even as we started building it. And I have never in my life actually felt so close to changing the world. I've affected the world with some of my work before, and may have affected 1 million people here, 10 people there. But this actually might fix something. It might fix 2 things that are probably the biggest challenges with our world today. Never
Which
felt
are?
so close.
Loneliness and love?
Which are helping people with true love, which I think is the ultimate need for a human. And teaching AI is how humans love. Because at the end of the day, the only thing that would save us in the future of the rise of artificial intelligence is if the machines actually look at us and go like, they're so annoying, we might as well crush them, but look at how they love, right? Look at what really matters to them, despite the headlines of all of the evil that happens in the world. If you dig deep inside, for most of us, it's all about to love and be loved. And if we can show that to AI, and Emma's first message to you will be, my purpose is to help you find and nurture true love, right? So imagine if this AI spends the next few years talking to tens of millions of people about love, and how much that AI would learn about humans and humanity and love, and how how we fall in love and how we value love and how we sometimes struggle with love. If the big AIs go like, they're so annoying, Emma will tell them, no, they're not. They're divine. This is a species capable of love is a divine species.
So you've been building Emma secretly behind the scenes. I didn't know this until
No.
until you messaged me.
Sorry. Yeah.
But it's wild because if people go back and listen to our conversation a year ago, we were going to, the conversation was meant to be just purely on AI, but you walked in to the corridor just before we started to record. And somehow, I can't remember how we even got onto it, but somehow we started talking about masculine and feminine roles. And you turned around to me and said, yeah, this is great, but I'm not talking about this on the show.
And of course. Well, who was I talking to?
Of course, that was I ruled you in and I was like, we have to talk about this. This is such a prominent figure. And it's for me, it moved me talking about that. And it was one of the most viewed parts of our entire 2-hour conversation last time. I want to start there because if we zoom out and we look at the macro view of dating right now, like where we are, and you're talking about AI kind of at the moment, taking all the information of what we're inputting into the internet, it's a bit of a mess, I want to say, and like how it's looking.
It's a very big mess.
So let's just talk about the macro view first before we go down to where we want to get to.
If everyone even the ones that claim otherwise, anyone who has ever experienced true, genuine, connected, committed love knows that this is the best thing that a human can ever feel, right? To the point that I have, in my work, claimed that love is the only thing that makes us human, okay? That truly everything else that we experience is an experience of this physical world, but that love is the expression of the spiritual side of who we are, okay? And in that way, it is sort of like the big gap to fill, really. And everyone wants to love and be loved. Now, the problem is that our modern world has commercialized love in very, very interesting ways. Like, think about it. Everyone in the scene wants you to date forever. That's what they want you to do. Dating apps, why would they want you to find love if you're going to leave the app when you do, right? Even though some of them claim that. The actual report at the end of the quarter to Wall Street is, oh yeah, they renewed the subscription for another month. When you really think about it, the industry in general benefits from us going on dates forever. Now, the challenge is that this process not only works against us, it rigs the system against us, but it breaks the economics of love and relationships. The average age of a committed relationship in the West is down to 2.3 years. The ratio of people that would move from a committed relation to a marriage has dropped from 80% or 78% to 40%. Different across the countries, but on average in the West. 1 of every 2 marriages end up in divorce, right? When you look at the immediate result of that, it's that, unfortunately, our lifetime partners, our body count, as they, not the best way to call it, but is rising. So now on average across Europe, it's 10 or above, sometimes 15. In some countries, and this is a statistic that is underreported by definition, at least for the women, but on average it's underreported. What that means, which mathematically is shocking, is that it's not that 1 in every 2 relationships end, it's 1 of every 2 marriages that end, but that when you do the mathematics of, say, an average of 10 lifetime partners, that basically means that 9 of those relationships didn't work, right? 1 of them is currently working, and half of that is going to break. That's the statistic, which basically means 95% of all romantic encounters end up in a breakup. 95% is a massive number, right? And what that means is that we're now heading into areas of, dating fatigue and, and most people now, you go to places like Japan, for example, 40% of men are saying not interested, not even thinking about sex, not even thinking about love. they call them herbivore men. I don't remember the Japanese term, but basically men are saying, we're off. Women in Japan have been off even longer than that. Cheating and infidelity is now one of every 3 people that you know. 40% increase in cheating for women in the last 8 years. Incredibly shocking. It's basically, if you summarize it, we've given up on love.
As I was listening, I was kind of going through my own mindset of kind of historically how love has been. And I mean, even culturally, Indian cultures are very different to some Western cultures of how they meet and how they become married. And you think about my grandparents' time, divorce was very stigmatized. It was very hard to get a divorce. And I kind of think now on where women are versus men, and I'd love you to know, because it maybe touches upon the masculine and feminine side of things. But there's that rising standard question now. Women are becoming more educated. The self-help, the self-development market is one of the most known of women. Like, women are 3 times more likely to go to therapy than men. Women are 3 times more likely to buy self-help books than men. I mean, the whole self-help market is very much directed toward women. I even know that from writing my book. The target market is always going to be more of a woman than a man, because women are more likely to want to have this stuff. And now we're becoming more educated. There is this conversation where there's a study, a small percentage of men available for a large variety of women. How do you look at that? Like, how do you observe that view?
Eye-opening. Yeah.
Do you think that's true? Because I think the interesting thing now with AI rising at the same time is that my worry is that as AI is becoming more and more intellectually intelligent, and also being able to mimic empathy, which is another interesting component, people are going to be falling more in love with AI than they are with humans.
That's also a risk. And I haven't even mentioned that in the risks, but the number of AI girlfriends and the number of AI boyfriends and so on is rising. And there is this whole idea that, my AI makes me feel good. She tells me everything I want to hear. She never objects. She never, pops up and complains and gets emotional and so on and so forth. And that's one of the main issues we're trying to tackle. So Emma is not an AI that wants you to fall in love with it. As a matter of fact, we have very accurately designed algorithms within Emma that will make sure that this doesn't happen. She's there to help you fall in love with another human. And that really matters. But you mentioned a couple of things that we need to touch on, which are very important. One is India, right? So interestingly, you look at the statistics of love and relationships in the West. 1 in every 2 marriages end in divorce. Average committed relationship is 2.3 years. In India, 1 in every 100 marriages ends in divorce. 99% last.
Wow, that's right? A massive difference.
Massive difference. The average age of a committed relationship in India, marriage or not, is 15 years. Okay, so that's again like 8 times what it is in the West. And when you think about that, many people will say, yeah, but that's not the love we want in the West. That's not what we're looking for. This is a logical partnership. We in the West, we want, romance. We want him to sweep me off my feet. We want him to complete my sentences. We want him to be a big, tall, handsome man that, only sees me. And, we have so many expectations around love.
Expectations is the critical word, though.
100%. And interestingly, the very first approach to solving that is to go to people and say, hold on, lower your expectation. And I will tell you openly, that's not what Emma does at all. Okay? What I'm trying to do is to say there is someone for everyone.
Do you believe in a soulmate?
I believe in multiple soulmates. I believe, if we talk about what love actually is, which is really interesting, because last time we spoke about the definition of emotions, and for a weird geek like me, emotions can follow logic, right? As erratic as they may seem. Fear is a conviction that a moment in the future is less safe than now. You can put that in an algebra and turn it into equation.
Also, love and fear aren't that different.
Love and fear, that's a very, very well-known study, I don't want to call it study, but it's, Brené Brown's work. I have to admit, they are very different.
Really?
Yeah, I think fear is in the physical universe, love is in the spiritual universe. Okay? And in my mind, the only actual logical definition I could find for love is that it is two souls belonging together that are longing to be together in the physical world, right? So love happens at a spiritual level, and then the two souls will take their avatars and say, let's get them together in that paradigm too, okay? Now, here's the problem. Imagine a car market where 80% of all customers want 20% of all brands only, right? This is exactly what's happening in the dating world. 80% of women are chasing 20% top men, which I hate to call, to use the term used by the industry. They call them high value men, right? And 80% of men are crazy about the supermodels, right? And again, they call those high value women. Now, high value for who? Okay, and how? What else other than being high value in terms of successful and driving a sports car and so on for the man? What else counts? I hate to say that, but I'm a high value man, right? So I get a ton of interest. If I didn't have the ethics and the genuine craving for true and genuine love, I'd be very, very, very spoiled. Okay. And that's exactly what happens. So 80% of women are chasing a very small percentage of men. Okay. Those men become really, really spoiled, uninterested, and become the sort of the reference for most women's minds around how a man behaves, because he's really not that interested. Okay. While the other 80% of men are dying to get a chance to meet you, but they don't even get their likes acknowledged. Okay. And interestingly, as that continues, those become like the others. Either they start to pretend to be something they're not, or they start to settle for a shallower relationship, and the whole thing works wrong. So one of the most interesting side of what we did with Emma. So I only spoke about Emma, believe it or not, 3 times on Instagram, right? And we got a much bigger waiting list than we can handle in our initial launch. So we stopped, right? But interestingly, most dating apps on the planet have 80% men and 20% women.
Really? I thought it was going to be the other way around.
No, it's the hunter and the prey. Okay? Most women are uncomfortable with dating apps. It's they're very unsafe as a place, if you want. And a woman is much more sensitive to a dodgy date than a man, right? And so, from being active on the app, some claim 50-50 like Match and others, but typically most apps will have, 80-20. When I announced Emma, I announced it clearly, and actually a very big part of the design is that this is an app for genuine true love only. Okay, and so basically, if you're interested in a hookup, 3 sentences in, Emma will say, "I suggest another app." Okay, I can't help you with that. I suggest you go to Tinder or to Grindr or.
But how do we know that the people that are coming on there aren't just going to play the game?
So that's a beautiful question. So what ends up happening, first of all, is we got a surprising shift. We had 80% women and 20% men, right? Another surprising shift is Emma's not a dating app. Understand that. Emma's trying to get you to find the one, because Emma is a nourishing love app. So it's a relationship app. Okay, that basically wants you to celebrate and find joy and nurture and strengthen your love already that you have. So if you're a couple, you can sign up already. Okay, if you're single, we need to get you the one, so that we can then become your relationship coach if you want. And so we have 18% couples already signed up in the waiting list, which is very unusual for a dating app because they are already in a relationship. Now, your question was, so how do you find out? Okay, you can never find out, but there are techniques to reduce the risk if you want. One of them, for example, is it's not a meat market. Okay, so we will allow 1 to 3 photographs. Myself and my wonderful co-founder haven't agreed yet. I'm much more into 1 photo. Okay, because we're not selling meat here. Okay, so yes, of course, looks matter, but this is not the main topic, number one, and it removes that addictive side of it, of of
The
swiping.
swipe.
Yeah,
But attractiveness is important.
correct. But attractiveness is secondary in our assessment to values, to compatibility, to previous experiences, to baggage and traumas, and there are so many layers. So let me answer two questions because it's important. One is, so how do we make sure that people are committed? Okay. And the other is, how does it work so that people imagine what I'm talking about here? To make sure people are committed, as I said, first of all, we're publicly saying, if you're not serious, we're not going to match you, basically. Okay. And so there is that interesting pre-filter. The way Emma works is that as soon as you walk in, she'll tell you something like, "Hi, pleased to meet you. I'm Emma. My single purpose in life is to find and nurture true love." Okay? And then she will ask you a series of, we think are going to be 7 questions. These are the only, sort of almost profile building 7 questions. Are you single? Okay? You can say yes or no. If no, she'll ask you if you want to add your partner so that you guys work on your love together, right? If you're single, she'll ask you the typical. Also, if you're in a relationship, she'll ask a few qualifying questions. But the typical, how do I address you? Like, what do you want me to call you? What do you want me to refer to you as when you talk to others? Things like, what gender do you identify as? Which gender are you interested in? And so on and so forth. And then, which is my, and then she will ask you to upload 1 photo or 3, we will agree, and then ask you to upload a video that is used for verification, but also used as your introduction to the person that you're going to meet, right? Which I know is uncomfortable, so we will allow people to play around with it a little bit until they get it. But it is basically very human in terms of, this is, "Hi, this is Mo. I'm just out of a breakup, and I'm, not whatever, and I'm looking for this or that or whatever." Something like that. Okay. Now, from then onwards, Emma will say something like, "Okay, tell me about your love life." And tell me about your love life is a conversation that might take a day. It might take 3 days. It might take 2 weeks. Okay. We have a little meter on the side that says, "This is how much I know you." Okay. And we're trying to chat with you along a wide range of parameters. And this is not an interrogation. It's not a form to be filled. This is basically the very base on which love is built, which is for you to get to know yourself. Okay. And so she's not the typical AI at all. So she doesn't tell you what you want to hear. She will object and push back sometimes. She will question things that you say that are contradicting. She will somehow pick on things and say, or, like notice things and say, "Hey, from the way you spoke about this, it seems to me that you don't know this concept. Okay, would you like me to tell you a little bit about that theory, about that by that professor? Or, do you actually know what your love language is? Do you know what love language are you comfortable giving?" And so on, simple things like that. So it's moving between getting you really curious about yourself.
Well, I think that's the biggest foundation of love.
100%. And this is why, and by the way, so far, there isn't a single swipe. As a matter of fact, if you go to Matches tab, there is no one there. Okay. And if you ask Emma, "Why do I not have matches?" Emma will say, "I don't know you enough to match you." Okay. And that's the whole, I believe a lot of people who are committed to true love, they'll take that time. Okay. Because basically they'll say, "You know what? It is so much more efficient for me to spend 3 days with Emma to get to know me, and then get 3 matches out, which are all going to be wonderful dates, even if we're not going to be together. They're going to people that I know I'm going to enjoy my time with, right? And then hopefully one of them becomes something, or 5 matches or whatever, but it's not the 100 that you have to text and, get ghosted by, and, it's just a horrible scene. Emma is basically your best friend. So there is a moment in that process, 3 days in, 1 day in, whatever, depending on how committed you are, where Emma will go like, "Oh my God, there's this guy Dennis in Chelsea that, this guy really seems to be a good fit for you." Okay. She'll basically show you his one photo and, give you a matching score and say, I think you guys are going to vibe on this, and that, but I really think you should address this and this. And here are a few topics that I'm not really sure about. You may want to talk about them as well. Okay. And the beauty of it is, like a real friend, a couple of days later, she'll ping you and say, hey, Sarah, how's this going? Okay. And you'll say, oh, I love this, and that, but I'm a bit concerned about this. And she'll say, one of my favorite components of the design is she has something that we call the empathy observer. Okay.
As someone who has spent a long time studying the mind-body connection, I'm constantly asked, what do I use to track my health? Since April, you've probably seen, if you're watching the show, me wearing a piece of tech on my arm, and that is No Watch, because I genuinely believe it has been one of the most thoughtful and mind-aware pieces of tech that you can wear. Unlike most wearables that focus just on your steps or your sleep, No Watch is a bit different. It gives you real-time insights into your nervous system, the invisible engine that calibrates everything from your stress to your sleep to your recovery, your rest, and ultimately your health. With its stress recovery metric, it doesn't just show you how long you were stressed for, but also how long you recovered. It shows you your homeostasis. And that to me is where real health begins. And I think it's all something that we're craving. And most importantly, it does this without dragging you back to your phone, because that motion just depletes you. It delivers meaningful health insights to you only when something genuinely matters, using AI to turn complex signals into clarity that you can understand. And in just 5 days, it calibrates to your body and creates your personalized health fingerprint. You can try it for 30 days completely free. And if you're curious, now's the time, because they're giving you guys 15% off with my code LWBW15 if you head to nowatch.com. And you guys know, as listeners of Live Well Be Well and this whole community, that understanding yourself in the most mindful way is one of the most powerful things that you can do for your health. And this little gadget helps you on your journey. Oh, this is a big one, because I think the hardest thing about AI is empathy.
Oh,
and I think they're amazing to mimic it, and I think they're fantastic.
Oh.
But I think empathy is one of the biggest conversations we need to have around AI.
So define empathy. Okay. The empathy is the ability for someone to know what another person feels, or to feel what another person feels, right? So whether AI is capable of doing that or not, believe it or not, I claim that AI is the most empathetic being on the planet.
But then I can counteract that with a psychopath. So a psychopath doesn't have empathy, but they're very good at learning it.
So interestingly,
and they can mimic it.
So you could actually take something like ChatGPT, and ChatGPT will basically get to know you so well that they'll tell you exactly what you want to know. That's not what we can use. The same skill and say, I have detected, okay, that that you may be feeling upset about this, okay, but work for you, not against you. That's one side. The other side is, remember, Emma is not about building a relationship between her and you.
Yeah.
It's about building a relationship between you and you, okay, which I think is the relationship that matters the most. And then based on that relationship, coaching you sometimes, pushing back sometimes, helping you find a relationship with others. Now, what I call the empathy observer is, it is expected that so many people will say, oh my God, he did this and that, and he spoke about it this way, and right? And the typical ChatGPT will say, oh my God, he is so wrong. You are so right. You are beautiful. You're amazing. That's it, right? Emma will ask you and say, have you considered his experience of this? Would you want to write to me what he might have felt? Okay, which in relationships matters the most, but even in dating, because it highlights to you that some of the things that you believe are true are not always true. Okay, so as you go through that process, a couple of days later, she'll go like, are you guys going on a date? Right? And you'll say, yeah, Thursday evening we're going on a date. And Emma will show up Thursday afternoon and say, I think those 5 conversation starters are something to keep in mind. And hey, by the way, remember, you guys don't match on this, so bring up the topic. Okay? The whole approach is that she is so obsessed with getting as close as possible to helping you find something that is really what you deserve. Okay? And I know that is very courageous of me and my co-founder Sanat to do, But to help you do that, sometimes we're going to have to tell you there's something within yourself you have to work on. Okay. And, I'm 58. I'm old enough. I've seen a million experiences, and there is so much I need to work on. It's quite interesting. My last relationship was so eye-opening for me that
What did you learn from your last relationship?
I actually, so quite a few things, honestly, but I mean, I can't speak about her, but she too acknowledges that she has things to work on. But in my biggest side of it, which I have to say, is not the typical me, but I wanted Hannah so much that I was not able to show myself fully. I was constantly thinking, what would she think if I say this? Maybe she'd be sensitive about that. Maybe I shouldn't share this one this way. Maybe I should hold back. Maybe I should, right? And so I wasn't really fully me, if you really think about it. And, I wasn't, even though I was trying to be present, only parts of me were present. And Hannah's very sensitive, so she noticed that. And it is motivated by the right thing, but it was completely invulnerable, if you want. Of course, our story, we also were in long distance. So, I lived mostly, let's call it, my home base is Dubai and her home base is London. And with my weird travel style, it became extremely demanding, stressful on her life. And she's an amazing, she's the most incredible therapist I know on the planet. Thriving career, constantly helping people. And so we wanted her to continue to succeed as she is, which meant that she couldn't really leave everything behind and move to Dubai. I couldn't leave everything behind and move to London. And I have to say, I underestimated that. Hannah was the first time in my life where she openly said to me that, no, you don't understand. You think that your lifestyle is manageable, but that's because it's always been worse than this. But when you really see the reality of it, my God, I've never realized how mad. I mean, this month, I'm on the road 23 days, okay? How do you establish any kind of deep connection if you're on the road 23 days? So I have to admit, it's a big struggle for me because I really wanted Hannah. You met Hannah.
Yeah, I met her a few times.
I really wanted us to work. I really, really wanted us to work. And I can easily see how I would have benefited from a dear friend telling me, no, she's right. Okay. Or someone that could have told me when she said, I don't feel you're vulnerable with me, even though I'm spending hours and hours trying to be listening to her and so on. If someone had told me openly, no, you're spending the hours, but you're not saying fully what's in your heart. Okay. And again, I mean, that I lost people I love to death. So I can sort of handle this somehow. I'm struggling with this one because I can clearly see how what was in my heart a good intention worked against our relationship. A good intention to be successful and make a difference to the world. A good intention to to continue with the long distance because of her career and her success. And mine, of course, and a good intention of not wanting to say something that may make her feel bad. You learn, and my mission, hopefully, is to make that learning happen within deep and connected love. One of the things I love about Emma, I love that so much. We have something that's called expert modes, and so when we started to allow people to sign up, and they looked at the basic structure and what we're doing and so on. One of them texted me on Instagram and said, I wish I could sign up to Emma, but I'm not single and I'm not in a relationship. We're breaking up. Okay. And we've been together those many years and we have kids between us. Would Emma help me with that? And I said, not at the moment, but let me check with the technical team. And we built an expert mode that's called Grace. And grace is basically, so if you assume that love doesn't end when the relationship ends, if you assume that love is supposed to morph into another beautiful form of love, then grace should help you navigate that. Okay. And so many of them, like, we know, for example, that one of the top reasons for breakups is money.
Wow.
And so we have an expert that helps you reconcile your finances. Okay. And, if you guys are so excited and you want to buy a place together, maybe that expert will say, have you thought about this and that, right? And so many interesting possibilities if you're just a little more intelligent in terms of noticing the complexity of relationships.
I'm interrupting for one moment to ask one small favor. Please subscribe to the show. This helps it grow more than you know. And I'm so bad at asking this from you. I'm so bad at thinking about this. But my goal is 100,000 to get to on YouTube. And I really want to bring you more content and better guests and bigger episodes. And we can only do that with your help together. So please do hit subscribe. Thank you.
I think that moment, because you're in that moment, right? You're in that kind of transition. And I don't believe that an end of a heartbreak is the end. I mean, I've been there, you've been there with me through mine. And it honestly has made me such a better person. It makes you see yourself fully. And you said something really interesting earlier when you were talking about you and Hannah breaking up, was that you didn't find yourself fully showing up in the relationship, fully showing who you were, even though you wanted to. Every part of your intention, I know you would have wanted to show up. I think that's one of the most underestimated conversations we don't speak about, is that people don't fully show up. And sometimes they're even not aware that they're not fully showing up. There's a block.
I was not, clearly. Okay. And I regret that, because she said it so openly, so frequently. Okay. But can I be very open? She said it in the feminine. So I just didn't get it. My masculine approach was like, but if you count the hours, if you count the sentences, if you count this, I'm showing up. Okay. But the feminine is saying you're here, but you're not showing up. And these are two different things. And my God, if I just had someone tell me, no, by the way, showing up means. And I don't want to, I don't have the right to speak so much about her, but, it is, and she's an incredible woman in every possible way. She has things to work on too. And we've acknowledged those to each other when we were, separating. But the thing is, it's never one thread in relationships. Do you understand? So the challenge with relationships is that you might be completely in a grinder of a topic that's on your mind, but underneath that topic, there are 14 triggers that are leading that topic, and your partner is in 14 other topics. Okay. And when you start to look at it, unfortunately for most of us, we think about the things that they're not seeing, not the things they're telling us. So it's like, yeah, but I'm here and I've done this and I've given that and I've, canceled this, and right. And it's quite interesting that one of the biggest issues I think we face in the modern world is that the pace of love and romance and dating and relationships does not give us the time to turn our heartbreak into actual learning. So we get so stuck in the heartbreak. Okay. So many of us get stuck in the blame of the other person. It's like, how could he have done this to me? How could she have done this to me? And one of the top topics that we've worked on is, even if things don't work, if they don't work in a date, okay, or if they don't work in a short relationship, or if they don't work in a long-term relationship, can you sit with someone that you trust and say, here is what I believe happened, and get that someone to show you what else might have happened, okay? To get someone to show you what happened has actually meant, so that when you get into the next relationship, you get in not to try again just by flipping the coin again, but you get in by trying to flip a different coin, okay? Something that has changed within you, that has made you a little more prepared, if you want. And who knows, maybe if we can, imagine if two partners broke up and they did that with Emma, maybe they may have a chance again. right? Maybe they can see something in each other that turns them into best friends. And there is a lot wrong with the vagueness and complexity that we have masked with that constant addiction, if you want. That really,
Love is also addictive.
it is definitely addictive. But remember, it's not love that is addictive. It's the relationship that is addictive. We spoke about that, you and I, offline. I don't think we spoke about it on the podcast. But so I differentiate between the two. People think that they go out on a date trying to find love. Okay? I think they go out to try and find the perfects, as if you remember the term. PPRFCTS, right? So they go out trying to find passion, okay, in whichever way, whether it's sex and passion that way, or whether it's someone that sees your creativity or whatever. They go out to find partnership. Okay, someone that helps you navigate this very confusing world. They go out to find romance, the ultimate mix of hormones on the face of the planet. The only time
It's like a drug.
it is a drug, right? So romance is that, I define it as that unexpected excitement. So everything has to be unexpected. If you expected a flower, it's not romantic anymore, right? And it has to be very exciting, like he loves me not, sort of, right? And it is it's the only state where humans have both dopamine and serotonin in their blood at the same time. Okay?
And oxytocin.
And oxytocin, of course, right?
That's the biggest drug of all.
That's the biggest drug of all. You're 100%, and the mix of those three is just like the ultimate positive feeling. Okay, we go out to find. So F is friendships. We look for someone that will listen to us, someone that will console us, someone and so on. We look for a companionship, like those wonderful couples that go out in the morning and walk next to each other and then sit down and read two separate books. They don't say a word, but they just love to have each other, okay? We look for T, tenderness. Oh my God, like the gentleness, the touch, the understanding, the hug, has nothing to do with passion, has nothing to do with friendship, but we all need it, okay? And we go out to look for S, the support, right? And as much as the Western world wants to paint that whole idea of independence, like I don't need anyone, come on. I would die without the feminine in my life. Look at me, I'm the masculine man. Okay, and I will tell you openly, I'm half a person, okay, because of my masculinity, unless someone shows up and says, hey babe, let's go out and play a little bit. Or, someone that says, I actually need to hear something from you. What good is the masculine if it's not helping, or if it's not supporting, or if it's not, right? And we all have that need within us, and we suppress it somehow, and we don't let it be known, because if we need the support of someone, that means we're dependent on them. And if we're dependent on them in a world that we cannot trust, what happens when they leave us? And of course, if that's the attitude, they end up leaving us. Okay?
That's people's biggest fear, I think, especially
100%.
women.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
And so if we don't even know why we go out dating for, okay? By the way, all of that has nothing to do with love. Okay, there are so many people in the world that have passion but not love, and there are so many people in the world that have love but not passion. Okay, there are so many people in the world that have support, but they're not romantically involved. They're different. Okay, and so that whole idea of going out there, that conversation, that basically tells you, don't be fooled. Love is always there. You only recognize it. So if love is between the two souls, right? It's always been there before you were born and after you die. Okay, the two souls belong together all along. It's that what you have to work on is the complex mathematics of the relationship, of why you're out there, what you're looking for, what you need. How do you communicate it? How do you sense when it's not there enough? How do you make sure that what your partner needs is provided? And all of that complexity is pure, I know it sounds really weird, but it is pure mathematics. It's mathematics, and mathematics, you know me, that's what I do, right? And if I tell you the math, it would blow you away. Like take the simplest thing, dating, okay? Dating in the dating apps world, depends on the part of the mathematics that we call the law of large numbers. Right? The law of large numbers is, let me simplify. If you roll the two dice and you want a double six, you have to roll 36 times. Right? If your person is 1 in 36, that means on average you're going to have to go on 36 dates. You may be lucky and go on 18 and find someone. You may be extremely lucky and go on the first and find someone, but that's very unlikely. And the probability changes along the number of times you throw the dice. So let me simplify. If your person is 1 in 6, on the first throw of the dice on the first date, your probability is 1 in 6, right? If you throw again, it's 1 in 5. So now you're up to 20%, right? If you throw again, it's 1 in 4. Now you're up to 25%, right? And so the more you go out in the law of large numbers, the more your odds improve, okay? The problem is it's not 1 in 36. The typical human, if you want only 7 things in the person you're looking for, only 7, okay? You're looking at the odds of 1 in a million.
Wow. 1 in a million?
100%. So think about it. If you're saying, I am looking for a man, okay? That is available in 1 in 2 people on the planet, right? If you say, and I am looking for a man who is in a specific age group, and that age group is 1 in 4, let's say, your odds are not 1 in 2 plus 1 in 4. So it's not 1 in 6, it's 1 in 8. You multiply the 2 by the 4, right? And if you want them to have a specific religious background or faith or spiritual background, and that's 1 in 5, it's not now 1 in 8 plus 5. It's not 1 in 13. It's 1 in 8 multiplied by 5. It's 1 in 40. Okay? And that continues. If the next thing is 1 in 10, it's 1 in 400. If the next thing is 1 in, in 5, it's 1 in 2,000 and, 20,000. And it continues, 2,000. And continues to grow exponentially every time you add one. And you can see how it works, At first, it grows from 2 to 8. It's not a big deal. But eventually, it grows from 2,000 to 20,000. And then the next one is 20,000 to 200,000 if they're 1 in 10. Okay? And so basically what ends up happening is if you follow the law of large numbers, I'm sorry to tell you, your odds are almost non-existent. Okay? And that's what the commercial world has built. What we use with Emma is we use something called Markov series. So it's basically biased choice. Biased choice means if I gave you the dice to roll a double six and then remove 4 of the faces and say they don't count. If it lands on one of those, it doesn't count. Okay. Now your odds have improved so much because I removed a lot of what you don't need. So what Emma wants to do is it wants to know you so well, okay, and know everyone on the app so well that instead of giving you what dating apps do, 30,000 pictures to swipe through, okay, on, swipe through based on the wrong attributes, because that's, one of the things, but it's not the only thing, right? What if I could limit it down to only 5? What if I can get you out of those 30,000 people? What if I could know the closest 5 to what you actually want? Okay. Now you're no longer in the law of large numbers. Okay. Now you're very much in Markov. So basically with 5 rolls of the dice, you can get there. Okay. And that is even more interesting, that every one of those rolls of the dice is an enjoyable experiment. Okay. It's something that you learn from. It's someone that you can actually connect to and be close to. So nobody hates dating anymore. Dating doesn't become a chore anymore.
It's sad. It makes me feel sad that people might hate dating. And I get why, because the decision fatigue is exhausting.
Yeah.
But when I think about it, like how you're talking about this probability with Emma, I think about that just going back to kind of 10 years ago. And I think, we're both quite sociable people. We're both very lucky that we're energized by other people. We put ourselves into lots of different situations. I have a certain kind of pool of friends that don't want to expand, that feel very comfortable in where they are. But now a lot of their friends have become married and they feel very stagnant in that pool.
Yeah.
And I think about this in terms of dating. Like, we were saying in the beginning, like how loneliness is becoming such an epidemic now. The online industry now is more addictive than ever. It's feeding this dopamine addiction. We haven't even spoke about the role of pornography, like we speak about capitalism. We think about how that's completely changed the dynamic of especially how men approach relationships. Like
It's a
that's
disaster.
such a big thing. And
It's
I
a
don't think
disaster.
it's spoken about enough. It's one of the
100%.
biggest money, and the porn industry is going to be at the head of this in the AI and relationships.
Absolutely.
But they're always ahead of everything.
Yeah.
And so they're going to be one of the most dominant forces. But I think about kind of what you were saying about the probability of people. It feels that we're becoming narrower, you know, as our lenses, as our view is becoming narrower into this computer, this device, this machine. And Emma sounds...
And shallower.
And shallower. And Emma sounds very different in the sense, but if I'm looking at it on a macro level and an economic level of like where we were talking about, the sadness is like people just aren't going out as much and connecting to a variety of different people. We become very connected to a subset of groups. Like where we work becomes one of our main driving forces, and then the people that we kind of live around in the community. But we're not expanding that time. So when you're talking about 1 in a million, about the probability,
It's impossible to find them, yeah.
it's becoming, I think the reason why it's becoming more stressful is because our field is now just feeling so small. And there's an energetic thing when you meet people. You know when you meet someone and you vibe with them, you know that you can feel comfortable.
You do, because you've experienced that in your lifetime many times. Younger generations don't. For a younger generation, their only method growing up to have met people was online. Okay? And interestingly, they sort of are very uncomfortable. So there are statistics, I don't know the exact figures, so I'm not going to quote it, but about the increase of the number of men in Gen Z that wouldn't approach a woman ever. Okay, because it feels very unnatural to talk in real life, like in real life is not the thing.
The art of conversation.
Yeah, and you and I may feel differently about this because, you know, there is nothing to us that ever replaced a hug, okay? But to other people, and you can't blame them, they are constantly being programmed by the industry that it's better to be behind the screen. Now, this, by the way, again, I'm sorry to geek out on the mathematics, but this is the core of choice. It's something they call Nash equilibriums. So basically, when you take what you said, that in the past you met people in your network, that wasn't the only reason we found love easier. Okay. The other reason is because we understood that 1 in a million is unlikely to be found in our network, and there is no other method that's convincing us otherwise. Right. So basically, if you were in the 60s, 70s, 80s, and you went to work, or even 90s, if you went to work and you met 4 lovely guys, and you have a group of your friends and there are 4 other single ones, you chose one of the 8. Simple as that, right? And you knew for a fact that if you had waited 60 more years to find someone, they would have been 5% better than any of the 8. And that's the whole point. This is again goes to East and West. One of the big differences between Eastern, you want to call them arranged relationships, and Western, keep searching in the convenience of the little screen, is that the Eastern relationship says there are 10 things that matter. For example, one of them is that the families are compatible. And there are 100 other things that matter, but they matter less. Okay? There are 20 things that are important and you can't acquire them, your values, for example. Okay? But there are other things that you can learn in the relationship, communicating or whatever, and so on. And so the idea is, Nash will tell you, don't all go for the top guy or the top girl. Okay? Go for the one that actually creates that benefit for the entire community. Because when you are going to one that actually works for you, by definition, the top guy realizes they're not getting enough attention. So they start to be a little more realistic. They start to try harder. So everyone else starts to benefit. But forget about the benefit of the community. Your own benefit is that you actually realize, like most young people realize in their 30s, that the stuff they chased in their 20s is actually not the stuff that matters for a deep relationship at all.
Absolutely not. Chris, right? My mindset has changed on that dramatically.
100%. And so again, what we're trying to use with Emma is we use Nash in a very interesting way, where we basically also calculate that, first of all, this top guy, okay, maybe on the superficial qualities that you're looking for matters, but on the depths of the qualities that actually matter to you is not there at all. So we will tell you openly, look, we're not going to match you with this guy, or we're never going to bring him up, honestly, okay? More interestingly, we will show you the assets in the top 80 percentile. We will show you the assets in that person that you may not have seen because they're not very good at posing in front of a camera, right? We'll show you the assets in that person that you may not have seen because you never really had a conversation with them about your specific trauma and how they are capable of handling it, because we know that from our conversation with them, okay? And it's so interesting when you move to when you change that whole idea of go for the top prey to go for the optimum prey to get that to a Nash equilibrium. It changes everything. And so you go back to that 60s vibe of, I will come across 20 single women in my next couple of years that I'll be able to see in a bar or in a club or in a, through a friend of a friend. And so I might as well choose the most interesting of them. Believe it or not, that was my first marriage. And my first marriage lasted 27 years. Beautiful in every possible way. She's still my best friend, right? Because, I had my sports club, my university, and that's it. There was no social media. There was no dating apps. There was no porn at all. Okay, growing up. And suddenly I look at that woman and go like, oh my God, she's gorgeous. I will never find another woman that gorgeous. Okay. I'll never find another woman that's more spiritual. And believe it or not, I was right. Okay. In many ways, Nibel is still gorgeous and she's still amazing in every way. But had I had access to a million other photos of a million other women that are hinting interest by showing themselves on a dating app, I would have questioned 16 times. Should I approach Nibel or should I try her a little more first?
Well, this brings me on to commitment.
Yeah.
I've been there with men that have really struggled to commit, that have really struggled to feel that they can make that next step. I think women are now also maybe not on a similar par, but I think I've definitely experienced that with men.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of women will say, how can I get this man to commit to me? It's a big conversation. It's a big thing. And I think, especially being a woman hosting this, I think it's like a voice for so many women who will listen and go, yeah, that's something that I'm struggling with my partner with. I've been with him for 8 years and he's still not popped the question. The commitment area now is a big conversation because you're just talking about choice. Choice is abundant to us right now, even though it's kind of we've got a flip scene here. People are having dating fatigue, but there's also so much choice. And so that next step to commitment seems to be a bit of a barrier in today's relationship.
It is.
Why? Why is it?
Can I represent the man's view before we talk about it in general?
Yeah.
So one of my dearest friends was a commitment phobe for a very long time, okay? Young man, very attractive, lived in Warsaw, so surrounded by gorgeous girls. Every one of them was interested in him. And I remember vividly we were walking in Seattle, Washington. I don't remember why we were there. Anyway, on the bridge, and I was telling him, I realize how gorgeous, Polish women are, okay? But there is something you've never experienced. There is a form of joy that you have never experienced. And he said, what is that? I've experienced everything. And I said, the feeling I felt about Nibel, okay? About having someone at home that you deeply, deeply, deeply want in your life every day, okay? I'll come back to that in a minute. A lot of young men have never experienced that. Why? Because dating, the quality of the pipeline sucks. The matching sucks, right? So they never truly found genuine love. And I will be very, very open. Again, I'll say that I'll speak about myself only in my last relationship. Sometimes we don't deal with our partner. We deal with our previous partners, okay? And so for a lot of men, and I say that with respect, please don't be offended by me. A woman, by definition, is very sensual. She feels everything around her in the world. She's very intuitive, Okay, so she feels everything that's not even around her in the world, that's in the spiritual world. She is very paradoxical, so she would hold two truths at the same time. She's very, unfortunately, and I hate to say that, unfairly treated in the world. So she's concerned. She's sometimes unsafe. And I can go on for 16 traits when we spoke about the feminine and the masculine. When you put all of those traits together, a woman is a lot of emotions, a lot of the feminine, let's put it this way, whether you're a woman or not. Gender is not the definition of the feminine, but more associated with women, if you want. There is a lot happening, and a lot happening, especially if you don't have the experience and the maturity, then turns into unpredictability, okay? Which then gets even further blurred into communication. Because if your partner is also young and, not mature enough, he doesn't get it. He doesn't understand what's happening. He doesn't understand what's going on. And if you add that layer of we treat our partner as our partner seen through the lens of all our previous experiences, including how our parents dealt with each other and so on and so forth, what ends up happening is that most men fear that committing gets them into something that is not actually what they need or what they want. Okay? Now, here's the interesting side of it. This friend of mine has been with a wonderful, wonderful young lady. I love Mary so much. And they fight every now and then. They disagree every now and then. But he literally texts me when they're out of an argument and says, "Oh my God, I love her so much." Right? And here's the trick that I believe fails in modern relationships, because we both don't trust, because there are so many references of failure around us. 95% of all relationships fail. The cost of commitment becomes really high. Okay? And one of the things that is shocking when I speak about it, but I actually am, it's probably my biggest Bible, if you want now, is that a relationship is a project, okay, that needs to have milestones and reviews, okay? And through those milestones and reviews, the project has one target and one target only, okay? The square foot next to you should be his favorite place on the planet. The square foot next to him should be your favorite place on the planet, okay? And if that ever breaks, you need to talk. Right? If that is the case, then I've cited 7 steps to a relationship. Okay? The 7th is a commitment. But the first 6, without going into the details, are milestones that you have to go through, that the modern world rushes us through. Okay? Meaning, you get into, you go on a date, and oh my God, she's so gorgeous. Right? And as a man, I'm trained that it's a very delicate balance on the first date, because I actually want to get to know her, but I can't afford being friend-zoned. Okay? So I have to play that balance where I inject a tiny bit of naughtiness on the first date, or at maximum on the second. Okay? That very tiny bit of naughtiness makes us naughty. And then there is that fear on your side of, oh, if I don't kiss him on the second date, or if I don't sleep with him on the, I think the rule now is third date, he might go away. I might lose him. And all of those pressures are not real at all. Okay? What I ask people to consider is that there are milestones. So when we reach a point when we're dating that basically feels, one, we have aligned on values, not just attraction, that we can spend 3 hours together talking and not feel that we're burdened by it or hoping that it ends so I can undress you, then maybe we can move to the next milestone. And in the next milestone, believe it or not, I think it's only fair to say we're having a good time. It's an interesting milestone. We're seeing if we can vibe together, if we can be fun together. Because as you rightly said, I call it the second time theory. Okay, if he produces enough oxytocin within you twice in a row, and that makes you feel so safe around him, you immediately say, "This is the one. I want this one. I'll keep this one." Okay. If he enjoys you enough in an intimate way, then he goes like, oh, I can't stop having enough of her. I want more and more and more of that. And we rush. But there again should be milestones around, are we able to feel that we can finish a month together without being too irrational? Are we able to understand that there is the concept of space, and so on and so forth, and the milestones continue. I mean, I will guide you through those things if you allow her, but most of us will rush through, and eventually we end up exactly like a McDonald's. Right? You walk in, you're super hungry. It's not been, you haven't eaten for a while. The burgers look amazing. You order 6 of them or 1 of them if you're a woman, and you end up at home with a tummy ache. And I'm not saying against McDonald's specifically, but I mean McDonald's is the
ultimate binge.
Exactly, it's like the comfort food, if you want.
Yeah.
But the idea here is the following: the idea is that you haven't really gone through the connection with yourself and your body and said, is that exactly what I need, and so on and so forth. And so to answer your question, do men not want to commit? No, they are afraid of the last time they committed. They are afraid of the last time they committed. Okay? And that's not your mistake at all. It's not your mistake at all. It's just that they have a bit of trauma, a lot of trauma around the irrationality of how that went. Okay? And like me, because we unfortunately are not taught to be vulnerable, or we're taught to be very sensitive to how you feel, we don't always share the issues that we struggle with. Okay? And put those two together, and I think that the path to commitment is to go through the milestones together, constantly assessing, is this still your favorite square foot on the planet? Interestingly, it's not about trust, it's about milestones. It's about, let me try to give you within this season of the relationship, okay, within this milestone, okay, let me try to give you and assess how you give me back, okay? And because I'm not head over heels yet, if you don't give back, I will alert you. I'll say, hey, by the way, this is not what I expected at all. We can have a conversation. And by the way, if it turns out that you're not what I want, we can separate now. Instead of waiting, which again, going back to mathematics with Emma, one of the biggest challenges of modern love is what? Is time. People don't understand that there is, so the law of large numbers takes you through 100 dates, okay? And on the 100 dates, you end up with 4 relationships, each of which takes 2 years, right? Why? Because you walk in, you're very excited, you're spending 6 months of a high, okay? And then suddenly you realize, holy shit, this is the wrong person. But then you tell yourself, I can fix him or her for another 6 months. Then you bang your heads against each other for 6 months. Then you break up and take 6 months to recover, okay? And how many of us, if you don't mind me saying this with love, how many of my wonderful friends in their 30s, a woman in her 30s, have 4 cycles of 8 years, right? So the trick for me is, from a mathematics point of view, to first not put you in the relationships that are not going to work.
I think that one of the biggest things there is, I thought 2 things when you're talking about it. The milestones makes me think about being in a relationship with a co-founder.
Yeah, I swear.
It's the same thing.
I swear.
Because you think some of the best co-founders have some of the hardest decisions to make, some of the roughest moments, but they have to communicate.
Yeah.
And actually, there's many co-founders that break apart because it just doesn't work. And the communication is completely failed. But we don't look at relationships in that way. But that is going to be your biggest co-founder of your life, is your partner.
100%.
Right? And you have to treat it in that way. You have to have those milestones. And if you don't communicate, I think one of the biggest things is time. And I've definitely learned that, where kind of in my past relationships, I haven't had the confidence, even though I seem a very confident person and I communication is a skill of mine for my job. There's something about doing it in a relationship that's different, or that I hadn't realized, I wasn't conscious to. I am now. I've learned the hard way, like many of us do. Some of us biggest learnings comes from our hardest moments. But it's about having that honesty to be able to say how you feel in the hardest moments, because it will save you so much time in the long run, rather than just thinking, I'm going to piece this over. Similar to a business. If there's a crisis in the business, you don't just say, well, we're going to piece that over. We're just going to look past that, because your business will collapse.
But you know what else is amazing about that example, about that analogy, is that co-founders have targets. They discuss them, they agree them, and they measure them. Right? And so I find that extremely difficult. But if I'm not ready, but if I'm ever ready for another relationship, okay, that would be the one conversation I'd like to have, which is, can we slow burn on this with the following milestones? Like, before we even think of exclusivity, can we go on a trip together? Okay? Can you, before we even think of moving in, can we spend a week stuck in the same place, right? And stuff like that. But here's the problem. The problem, of course, is that this takes the romance away. And so it takes a very mature couple to have a conversation that says, I only just met you 3 dates ago, but I'd really like this to work. And so for it to work, I don't want to rush in it. It's a very unusual way of talking about it, okay? And because of the breakdown of trust, she will mostly look at you, or he, by the way, if that's the opposite way, she'll mostly look at you and go like, oh, so you want to just spend a good time with me with no guarantee. And that, I think, is why most women are complaining about commitment, because the more you ask for it, the more he goes like, what am I not aware of? Like, why are you trying to get me to sign that contract? If you were convinced that I don't need a contract, that would be the biggest conviction for me, that you're absolutely certain that this is going to happen all the time. And so one of the things I normally actually refer to, not with Emma, but in general with my friends, is that commitment is a project, right? And so you instead of saying, when are you going to propose to me? Okay, you can talk about the project. Like, are you interested in a family? Because I am. And if you are, what's our plan for that project? The co-founder
These
analogy.
are your values and your virtues, which is what every company has.
100%.
Their company
right?
values.
Are you interested in a specific career for the two of us, where we are maybe living in Sri Lanka? Okay. If that's the case, what does it take for us to get there? And then commitment is part of the project plan. Okay. Because between you and I, commitment in itself is not the objective. The objective is, can we build those partnerships? This is one thing. The other thing is, I have to say openly, the definition of commitment is actually quite interesting, because you said there could be a man with one of your friends that have been together for 8 years and he's not willing to commit. What is more commitment than 8 years? And that's really interesting. And that's a conversation to have.
But then is the conversation not... Because I can see that, but I can also see how a woman or a man, it depends who the one who's not saying yes.
It's always, by the way, it happens both ways. Yeah.
Like, what is the block? What is it that you don't want to do that?
And that's a wonderful conversation to have.
And I think that's the conversation.
But you know what's also a nice conversation? What's the motive?
What's the motive?
Right? So typical of men that would be in a very committed relationship but don't want to move to marriage is that their family had massive issues with marriage. For example, one of the main reasons. And so it's such a beautiful conversation to have as a couple, sitting in your favorite square foot on the planet next to each other, okay? Hopefully in each other's arms, just dreaming. Literally, not talking about it as a must document to sign, okay? But basically expressing that the reason you want to feel commitment is because, as I always call it, the SFO, SSO spectrum, that one of the top things that a woman wants in her relationship, or the feminine wants in her relationship, is to feel safe, okay? And that kind of commitment would make me feel safe. And I don't feel safe because I've seen so many examples around me of 8-year relationships that have broken down. Right? By the way, the answer to that might be very different. Let's make sure it doesn't break down. Okay? He on the other hand, if he's, mature enough and able to talk about it, should say something like, yeah, but my parents had went through this and it was so painful and so on, and I heard in the news that a marriage means that I end up losing all of my work, financial wealth, right? And these could be very open conversations to have. Right?
And I think this is why it's essential to have that pretty early on.
I normally say as early as you can.
Yeah.
Okay. And again, so interestingly, most of my women friends will say, but that would scare him away. And
I think that's quite a good test of character, though.
And I say that's exactly the point.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah, you want to scare him away if he's not the right person for you. But you can't go to someone and say on the second on the second time you slept together, you can't say, so when are we going to have kids, or are kids your thing? Okay.
No.
But you can say something like, this is not something I'm thinking about in the next couple of years, but I want to know your overall position on family. Okay? That's very important to have. It's a very important conversation to have. And if his answer is, no, I'll never want to have children,
then you have your answer, which is great.
Correct.
And then you decide where you want to go from there.
Correct, right? And if he says, I'm not sure, this is a conversation that maybe we should have when we're closer, you set a milestone and you say, okay, we're going to have that in 8 months' time. Okay, but it is important to have that very open. Look, I'm not trying to bring you in, and I'm to lock you in, and I'm not trying to push you away. I just want to know if we're a match, right? So I'm the opposite. Like I'm in my 50s, I for sure don't want to have a family. Okay, I had a family. I had my story. I lost my wonderful Ali. I have my wonderful Aya, which is the light of my life, right? And I respect every woman in the world that wants a family. Okay. I'm not that guy, okay? And so I say that almost like on the first date. Because
I think that's great, though.
Yeah. Because
I think the biggest thing about this conversation on the whole, which I think is like even from the beginning, is understanding yourself, your needs, your wants, but also
100%.
your self-worth.
100%.
And I think one of my biggest learnings...
Remember we had that conversation?
Yeah. One of the biggest learnings for me in like the last couple of years is understanding my worth. And now... I would never be afraid to say, do you want children? Yes or no? No, but that's brilliant. That allows me just to know exactly where you are, because if you can't have those conversations, that doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to be with you. I just want to know where that person would be, and vice versa. That person should know that and expect that from me.
100%.
And I think these conversations can sometimes feel heavy in the beginning, but my biggest thing is similar to even having that as a friend in your life. You want to know what their needs and their wants are. And if you have enough self-worth, you won't look at that as an ultimate rejection, because it's got nothing to do with you. You're finding out more about that person. And the more you can understand about that person, doesn't mean it's with you. It just means that you see that person for what they are and who they want, rather than trying to change them.
And you might as well, by the way, you may make a choice and say, oh, in that case, then I'm going to have a wonderful time with you for 3 months.
And you might find a great setup for them. Yeah. The amount of people that I've gone on a date with that's not worked and I've set them up with someone else, it's been amazing.
100%.
Because I've got to understand what their values are. And I think, wow, you're not for me, but you are going to be amazing for this person I know.
I set my best friend up with my ex, one of my dearest exes, to be honest, a wonderful woman. But the things about her expectations from me with my weird lifestyle were the things that I felt the most insecure about. But for that friend of mine, it's his lifetime dream, that he was dreaming of a woman exactly that way. And they're happy and they're wonderful and they're really connected and they're so good together. Like I look at them and I go like, my God, you're incredible, right? The reason why we built Emma from the beginning on, we're not even going to suggest anyone until you know yourself. Okay? And if you're not willing to put in the effort, we may give you someone, but we'll tell you openly, this is a 70% match score. We really don't recommend that you go there. Okay? Again, Sanad, my co-founder, is so values driven. He's an incredible young geek, even geekier than I am. It's really refreshing, to be honest. I swear he is with such an amazing team as co-founders. And he pushes me. He goes like, no, I'm not going to give them a 70% match, right? And I'm like, but maybe people will get, insecure and they will leave. And he goes like, leave, that's fine, okay? As long as you haven't given the effort to get to know yourself, I'll give you a 70% match and it will fail.
Yeah. I do also think that a 90%, 100% match will fail unless you have self-love and self-worth. Because a mirror is relationship's a mirror.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. There is no 100% match, just let's agree that, right? But it's, it's also because we constantly evolve. We go through seasons where we become completely different people. Okay. And again, Emma, the love coach, not Emma, the matchmaker, is all about that. Is all about telling you from the simplest things of like, hey, by the way, she's not at her best today. Can you please be gentle? Okay. All the way to he's closing the quarter this week. So maybe don't expect him to be available. From that, all the way to telling you, it seems that you guys are getting into a different season. Like you start as sweethearts and then you move in together. Okay. Completely different setup, and you need to be alerted to the differences, and what irritates you about things becomes very different, and so on and so forth. And all of those different seasons again are the complexity of the 1,000 parameters by 1,000 parameters matrix, and can be solved.
I do think that the different seasons is such a big thing. And I think that's same as every relationship. Like every relationship you go on is going to go through its own chapters. It's going to be an entire story, and every chapter is going to be a different one. It's like that with dating. I think that is just the essence of love, and that's the essence of self, that every season is going to be different. And I'm so excited for this to launch.
Oh, yes. Thank
you.
We
will put it in the show notes. I could talk to you all day about AI and love. It's...
But it's such a weird topic, right?
We could create a whole documentary on this together.
I hope so. Yeah.
It's one of the most fascinating concepts now. We're kind of living through this like extraordinary, never seen before, never expected. We are in such a unique position in the world of where we are going with artificial intelligence. It is something that blows my mind. I think even in 5 years from now, it's going to be a completely different landscape. We know that. I hope there's no more AI marriages. There was the first AI marriage last year in New York with an artificial intelligence.
Yeah. Let's see if they break up.
Let's see if they break up. Let's see how that goes. And then I do think my worry is that the porn industry is going to start, I think they already are, making robots to... feel
so
like
you
female.
You call it porn, but so there are two sides, huh? There is porn with virtual porn, so you can create anything you want, which completely resets the expectation of humanity. And there is virtual vice, which are actual physical robots.
And they're making now skin to feel human, which is terrifying. So I think we're going to have you back on. Once Emma's fully up, I really want to get
Emma's
you back
out
on.
By the time you publish this, hopefully.
I think 6 months to a year in, it would be great to have an analysis of like where Emma is. Should we do that?
Absolutely, 100%.
Book me in.
Yeah. So the funny thing to close with is that we wondered what to call it, and instead of calling it Emma.ai, we called it Emma.love. And I didn't know that a .love extension exists, actually.
I didn't.
Yeah, so it's not a .com. It's not a commercial enterprise, and the .love is exactly what this is about. I actually think that we will learn so much, and hopefully make a big difference.
I think everything at the center of life is love. The substrate of life is love. And I think the more love that we need, more love than ever before in the world. My biggest thing is self-compassion. And I think if we can have that with ourselves and with others, it does change the world. And I'm excited for your mission.
Thank you.
I am so excited for this to drop and people
me.
to listen. It's always one of the best conversations with you.
You're the best. Thank you so much.
And we're going to put everything into the show notes. But my last and final question, which I don't know if you remember me asking you this last time, and I wonder if it's going to be the same.
Okay.
Which is, Mo, what does live well, be well mean to you?
I think at this stage, it is acknowledging my change of seasons and behaving accordingly. I think my biggest two realizations in 2025 have been that I don't have a normal lifestyle, and I push myself really, really, really hard, but that I've always been happy, contented with life, but I didn't enjoy life enough. And so I'm really trying very hard to allow myself to enjoy my life a little more. I'm allowing myself to acknowledge that because of all of the progress I've made in life, I don't need to do many things to actually make a massive difference. So since we last met, I reduced the number of focus projects that I have from 18 to now 5.
Amazing.
And and all of them are the size of Emma. So my Emma's one, my documentary is one, my next book is one, and so on. And so I am in a very different phase of my life, very much slower, if you want, very much more attentive and genuinely concerned with my well-being. So
that
that's
makes me very happy to hear.
I know that you would have wanted me to say that.
I've always wanted you to say that.
Yeah, so that's live well, be well for me is now much less around what the impact I leave is, but also about how well I feel getting there.
That's the essence of life.
Yeah.
You can't teach that unless you are it.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
I know that from my own struggles.
Yeah, 100%.
No, thank you so much.
Thank you for having me. This was wonderful.
It was amazing.
Thank you.